What's the best way to soothe a crying baby? What's the best way to soothe a crying baby? Well, I don't know, but NeuroScience News claims to know. You're listening to NeuroScience News Reading, presented by Hakeem Ali-Bocas Alexander on the Wisdom app for World Reading Club in association with UniquilibriuM. Today's cold reading is from NeuroScienceNews.com and is titled, What's the Best Way to Soothe a Crying Baby? Under the categories of Featured and Neuroscience on September 13th, 2022. Summary. Using the transport response method of carrying a crying baby for a few minutes and then sitting with the child helps reduce crying and heart rate. Source, Riken, or R-I-K-E-N, it's all in capital letters, I've never seen that before. Neuroscience News continues. New research published in Current Biology on September 13th demonstrates the importance of carrying infants rather than simply holding them. Led by Kumi Kuroda at the Riken Center for Brain Science, CBS, in Japan, the study details how crying babies are physiologically affected by being held, carried, and laid down. The data yield a simple but cost-free and effective technique that increases the chance of getting a crying infant to calm down and sleep in bed. Most parents know the occasional frustration and discomfort of dealing with a crying baby. For some, it's a regular occurrence that affects the baby's ability to sleep and stresses out the parents. What can you do in this situation? Kuroda and her team found a transport response in distressed mouse pups and human babies in which infants calm down when carried by their mothers. Let me read that again. Kuroda and her team found a, quote, transport response, end quote, in distressed mouse pups and human babies in which infants calm down when carried by their mothers. The response is a complex series of parallel biological processes that result in reduced crying and lower heart rates, which helps parents to transport the infants. The new study used a baby ECG machine and video cameras to systematically compare changes in heart rate and behavior as mothers acted out activities that are commonly used to calm infants, including carrying, being pushed in a stroller, and holding while sitting. Data during these activities were recorded from babies that were crying, awake, and calm or sleeping. At each heartbeat, behavior was assessed as asleep, alert, or crying, and scored accordingly. This way, the researchers could track changes in both behavior and physiology with sub-second precision. The experiment led to a few important findings. First, as Kuroda explains, walking for 5 minutes promoted sleep, but only for crying infants. Surprisingly, this effect was absent when babies were already calm beforehand. Among the babies studied, all had stopped crying by the end of the 5-minute walk and had reduced heart rates, and about half were asleep. Second, sitting and holding crying babies was not calming. Heart rates tended to go up and crying persisted. Let me repeat that. Second, sitting and holding crying babies was not calming. Heart rates tended to go up and crying persisted. The heartbeat measure allowed the researchers to dissect the effect of each microactivity as infants were handled. The researchers found that the babies were extremely sensitive to all movements by their mothers. For example, heart rates went up when mothers turned or when they stopped walking. The most significant event that disturbed the sleeping infants happened just when they became separated from their mothers. Every mother has experienced the disappointment of having a finally sleeping baby wake up again after being put down. The researchers pinpointed the problem using the heartbeat data. Although we did not predict it, says Kuroda, the key parameter for successful laydown of sleeping infants was the latency from sleep onset. Based on the transport response in which distressed animals calm down when carried, the behavioral and psychophysiological data in this study showed that when babies are crying a lot, walking around for 5 minutes, following by sitting for about 8 minutes, should help calm them down and put them to sleep. Note, sitting and holding a crying baby never calmed them down and heart rates rose. Putting babies to sleep immediately after walking often led to higher heart rates and woke babies up. Credit Riken. NeuroScience News continues. Babies often woke up if they were put down before they got about 8 minutes of sleep. Thus, based on the data, Kuroda recommends that when babies are crying too much and can't sleep, mothers should carry them steadily for about 5 minutes with few abrupt movements, followed by about 8 minutes of sitting before laying them down for sleep. Although this procedure does not address why some babies cry excessively and cannot sleep, it offers an immediate solution that can help parents of newborns. Additionally, the researchers recognize the usefulness of heart rate data in this age of wearable fitness devices. We are developing a baby tech wearable device with which parents can see the physiological states of their babies on their smartphones in real time, says Kuroda. Like science-based fitness training, we can do science-based parenting with these advances and hopefully help babies to sleep and reduce parental stress caused by excessive infant crying. About this parenting research news. Author, Adam Phillips. Source, Riken. Contact, Adam Phillips, Riken. The image is credited to Riken. Okay. Original research, open access. A method to soothe and promote sleep in crying infants utilizing the transport response by Omura and others. Current biology. NeuroScience News suggests you see also under the categories of featured neuroscience and psychology from June 2nd, 2022, what oxytocin can tell us about the evolution of human prosociality. NeuroScience News continues with an abstract from A Method to Soothe and Promote Sleep in Crying Infants Utilizing the Transport Response. Highlights. Infant cry is attenuated by transport, but not by motionless holding. 5-minute transport promotes sleep for crying infants, even in the daytime. Lay down of sleeping infants into a cot either interrupts or deepens infants' sleep. Lay down at 5 to 8 minutes after the sleep onset tends to prevent infant awakening. Infinite awakening. Infinite awakening. That should be the name of a, or maybe probably already is, a personal development program. NeuroScience News continues with a summary. Approximately 20% to 30% of infants cry excessively and exhibit sleep difficulties for no apparent reason, causing parental stress and even triggering impulsive child maltreatment in a smaller number of cases. While several sleep training methods or parental education programs may provide long-term improvement of infant cry and sleep problems, there is yet to be a conclusive recommendation for on-site behavioral interventions. Previously, we have reported that brief carrying of infants transiently reduces infant cry via the transport response, a coordinated set of vagal activation and behavioral calming conserved in altricial mammals. Let me try it again. In altricial mammals. Good. So previously we have reported that brief carrying of infants transiently reduces infant cry via the transport response, a coordinated set of vagal activation and behavioral calming conserved in altricial mammals. In this study, we disentangled complex infant responses to maternal holding and transport by combining sub-second scale event-locked physiological analyses with dynamic mother-infant interactions. Infant cry was attenuated either by maternal carrying or by reciprocal motion provided by a moving cot, but not by maternal holding. 5-minute carrying promoted sleep for crying infants even in the daytime when these infants were usually awake, but not for non-crying infants. Maternal laydown of sleeping infants into a cot exerted bimodal effects, either interrupting or deepening the infant's sleep. During laydown, sleeping infants were alerted most consistently by the initiation of maternal detachment, then calmed after the completion of maternal detachment in a successful laydown. Finally, the sleep outcome after laydown was associated with the sleep duration before the laydown onset. These data propose a 5-minute carrying, 5 to 8 minute sitting scheme for attending to infant cry and sleep difficulties, which should be further substantiated in future studies. NeuroScience News asks you to join our newsletter. Sign up to receive our recent neuroscience headlines and summaries sent to your email once a day, totally free. We hate spam and only use your email to contact you about newsletters. You can cancel your subscription anytime. NeuroScience News posts science research news from labs, universities, hospitals, and news departments around the world. Science articles can cover neuroscience, psychology, AI, robotics, neurology, brain cancer, mental health, machine learning, autism, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, brain research, depression, and other topics related to cognitive sciences. You've been listening to NeuroScience News Reading presented by Hakeem Ali-Bocas Alexander on the Wisdom app for World Reading Club in association with UniquilibriuM.